So the next thing that we'd do after a bit of breathing is we'd go into what we call some foam rolling. Now this is probably the part that I really want you kind of to focus on a fair bit. Foam rolling is a bit of a fad that has been, everyone sort of does it now, but a lot of people don't really know what it does, how it works, or how to do it. Anyone heard of the word fascia? The fact that I've mentioned it before. Yeah. So fascia is like connective tissue. It's a web. It's an elastic, sort of highly hydrated sort of spider web, in a sense you could say. It wraps our body, goes through our body. Our bones are made out of it, our muscles are made out of it, tissues, our organs, our eyes, everything is made out of fascia. It's something that used to get thrown away by the scientists, and now it's like the most miracle thing that they're studying at the moment. They call it the Cinderella tissue because it was just chucked away. If you have a piece of steak, the white stuff in the steak is fascia. The white stuff around the steak is also fascia when you have some fat and stuff like that. Fascia is amazing. It makes us jump. When we jump and we load up, we do this kind of stuff, and our skipping and stuff, that's your fascia. Your muscles are actually isometrically contracted if you're skipping, they're not moving in length, but your fascia is what makes kangaroos jump like crazy, and gazelles, and it's what makes us jump. And there is a way to train it. But when it comes to the foam rolling stuff, the thing about fascia is that if you're inert, so if you're not moving a lot, it's always adapting to what you're doing. So if you move a lot, it's going to be moving a lot, and it's going to be staying hydrated, it's going to be staying mobile. If you sit down a lot, if you don't do a lot of movement, it gets sticky because it's 80% fluid, 80% water. It's kind of like a gel kind of water. So for people that do work in the corporate industry or sit down a lot, it's really important they know how to treat that. And the way we treat it is with compression. Compression comes from foam rolling. And that's why the foam roller also needs to have a fair bit of density to it, so that it's actually doing the right thing. And what we're looking at there is when we compress our fascia, we're basically squeezing a dirty sponge. So we might have this area of fascia that hasn't really moved much, and it basically just gets dry, sticky, and sort of laminated. So we add some compression to it. Yes, it can be a little bit painful, and it's basically just squeezing a dirty sponge and then allowing blood and nutrients to go to that site. And that's what we're trying to do with foam rolling, is we're trying to energize the fascia a little bit. So if you imagine you have a bottle of tomato sauce, it's been sitting in the cupboard for a little while. It gets quite thick and viscous, right? So what you want to do, if you try and pull it out, it's not really going to come out of the bottle. So what do? We give it a bit of a shake. We energize it, and we reduce the viscosity or the thickness of it, and it comes out better. Same thing we're doing here. So when we do our little bit of warm-up, if we're on the bike or something like that, before we do our foam rolling, we're just creating a little bit of energy into that system to make the fluid part of the fascia a bit more hydrated, so that it's smooth, it slides and glides. So fascia basically is three-dimensional as well. So that's what you're going to understand. So I'm going to demonstrate some stuff with you here. A few different tools. Blackroll is a German product I work for now, and probably the best product on the market when it comes to it. You'll notice that there's actually not a lot of give there. A lot of the stuff on the market does have a bit more give, and you'd probably give that to someone that's 60 or 70 that can't really tolerate much pain. Some people use pipes. That's a little bit too hard. This has a really nice density to it for most people. So there's a number of different tools here because sometimes you want to get a bit more deep and sometimes we want to be more superficial. So let's start with the foam roller, because most gyms will have that, and I see them here. So if we were to work on a particular, let's say we're working on our calves today, most people probably find we'll be rolling around, doing this for a little bit, change sides. What we want to do is it takes about 2 to 3 minutes to actually get a neural response from what we're doing. So we can't just do it for a short, like 10, 20, 30 seconds. You're not really doing a whole lot there, especially if you're only going in one dimension, which is say forward and backwards. So what we want to do is we kind of want to suss out the area. Now, healthy tissue isn't painful. So if you feel like nothing's really painful, your tissue there is probably okay. But if you find a spot, like I find there, where the soleus and the gastroc meet, I'm going to hang out on that spot for a little bit. And there's a few different techniques we can do here to try and manipulate the fascia in sort of 3 dimensions. So the first one we can do is basically just adding a little bit more pressure and focusing on our breathing. Remember I said that when we exhale, nice and slowly, that has a calming effect on our system, and our fascia actually has smooth muscle. So that means that the smooth muscle is going to open up a little bit, and it's going to help relax the connective tissue. So just focusing on your breathing for starters is one way to do it. Then what we're going to do is what we call a contract relax. So we're going to actually bring our mind to that area. So when I'm in that area of pain, I'm going to contract my calf muscle for 5 seconds and relax that muscle. So all we're doing is adding a little bit of the sliding elements of contraction into that sort of area. And you do that for about 5 or 6 times on that little area. The other thing we do is what we call flossing. So now we're going to manipulate it from a sort of a different direction, and we're going across the actual muscle and tissue. And that's going to help break it up in another sort of dimension. The last one we can do, there are a few others, but the last one that I'll demonstrate is what we call just using the actual limbs to sort of increase the sliding, because fascia is thousands of layers and they all slide over each other, and that's why the hydration part's really important, because it's kind of like a hydraulic effect. You need the fluid and the hydration to make it slide together. So when you contract relax, yes, that's one way to get it, but there's also this way. So say we're going to work above the knee here. If anyone's a tight hip flexor, we want to work at the top of the knee here to get our rectus femoris loosened up a little bit. What we can do is we can find that spot, and then we can actually add some flexion and extension into that range. And that way we're getting the muscle moving through its ranges and the connective tissue getting a bit of a stretch, but also getting some compression through there. And then we're kind of squeezing that sponge, getting rid of the dirty water, and then at the end your circulation will sort of allow new blood to get into that area. So that's some sort of ways that we can actually use the foam roller to make it do what it's meant to do. Remember, you got to spend about 2 to 3 minutes. So some people might come in, say you're going to do squats for the day. You really focus on your legs predominantly, then say working on your arms or something. So you really only want to focus on 1 or 2 areas, otherwise you could spend a whole hour just foam rolling. And you'd probably want to do your majority of foam rolling at home when you're watching TV, sit on the floor and have your foam roller there, rather than before you come to the gym, because then it's like, well, I've just been here for an hour and I couldn't be stuffed anymore. But foam rolling does release a lot of pain. Our body stores pain. The fascia is highly innervated by our nervous system, so it's got 6 times more sensory receptors than our muscle. So we store a lot of our emotion in our body. Foam rolling is, yes, it might be painful in some spots, but that's what we call pain out. So we have pain in when we sort of hurt ourselves or kick our foot on the door. We have stored pain, which can be in our brain, our heart, our stomach, or our body, and then we have pain out, which is good pain. It's like exercise is painful, but we feel good after it. Foam rolling is painful, but we will also feel good about it. So use it to your advantage there.